Claressa Shields just torched the biggest career runway women's boxing has ever handed a single fighter. And Alicia Baumgardner is standing right there, calm, composed, ready to catch every falling piece as it drops. By the time this video ends, that statement is going to hit you like a straight right down the middle of the pocket. And before we get anywhere near the receipts, I hope every single one of you tuning in tonight is doing okay. Because the daily Meltdown crowd we are about to unpack has turned this thing into a full-scale spectacle. And honestly, this might be the wildest chapter women's boxing has produced this entire decade. So welcome in, welcome back. And if this is your first time landing on this channel, you already know the play. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and let's get straight into the storm. Trust me, you do not want to miss a single beat of what has unfolded in the last several days. Because the layers here run deep and every single layer somehow gets worse for Claressa Shields. Now, before we open the vault on everything that just went down between Claressa Shields and Alicia Baumgardner, understand this, what looked like a routine face-off, a routine bit of trash talk, a routine promotional theater moment, has quietly turned into one of the most damaging self-inflicted spirals a reigning champion has ever put herself through in the modern era of the sport. And you already know I do not throw sentences like that around lightly. Point is, Claressa Shields, a fighter who once carried the entire flag of American women's boxing on her shoulders, has managed to hand the momentum, the moral high ground, and the public narrative directly to Alicia Baumgardner without Alicia having to throw a single punch. Not one. And that is the part that stings the most for the people who once rode hard for Claressa Shields for years. Let us rewind the tape and lay the groundwork, because the receipts here are extensive and every one of them matters. Alicia Baumgardner sat down for an interview, and inside that interview, she was calm, poised, deliberate, and she answered questions the way any smart champion would answer them, with grace and intention. When Alicia Baumgardner was asked directly about Claressa Shields, she did not spiral, she did not scream, she did not fumble for a comeback line. Alicia Baumgardner simply said what she genuinely believed. She said she would knock Claressa Shields out. She said consequences are consequences. She said there is only one Alicia Baumgardner in this sport. And she said all of it while looking every camera dead in the lens with zero flinch. That was not chaos. That was command. Now compare that to what Claressa Shields did next, because this is where the wheels started to come off in real time for the entire audience to witness. Claressa Shields watched the same interview the rest of us watched, and instead of letting the moment breathe, instead of letting the drama simmer while she quietly locked in for her August 15th event, Claressa Shields decided to fire back within 1 hour. 1 hour. Not 1 day. Not 1 week. Not a controlled statement issued through a manager or a publicist. Claressa Shields herself, on her own timeline, decided to call Alicia Baumgardner scared, decided to accuse Alicia Baumgardner of wanting to press charges, and decided to declare herself, quote-unquote, the real face of women's boxing on the planet. And that word choice, real face, is doing an incredible amount of heavy lifting in that sentence, because it tells you exactly where Claressa Shields is mentally right now. She is not fighting to defend a title. She is fighting to defend a self-image. There is a massive difference, and Alicia Baumgardner already knows it. Now hear this, because this is where the whole story starts pulling itself apart at the seams. Claressa Shields has spent months building what I want to call the Shields echo machine. It is a constant, self-reinforcing loop of live streams, tweets, replies, comment section wars, and podcast appearances where every single beat is engineered to make one message louder. That Claressa Shields is the biggest name in women's boxing, that Claressa Shields is the pound-for-pound queen, and that Claressa Shields does not need most valuable promotions, does not need Alicia Baumgardner, and does not need anybody else in the entire sport to validate her legacy. Fine. Nothing wrong with confidence. Champions carry themselves that way. The issue is not the confidence. The issue is the contradiction, and the contradictions from Claressa Shields have started stacking so fast the tower is close to collapse. Because here is the thing nobody in the Shields camp seems willing to say out loud in public. If Claressa Shields truly did not care about Alicia Baumgardner, we would not be here tonight. We would not be watching daily livestream tirades from Claressa Shields aimed at a fighter she claims is beneath her level. We would not be watching Claressa Shields drag Alicia Baumgardner's private life into public conversations. We would not be watching Claressa Shields recycle 2-year-old comments and clips just to keep Alicia Baumgardner's name in every algorithm. If Alicia Baumgardner truly did not matter, Claressa Shields would ignore Alicia Baumgardner completely. Silence would be the flex. Silence is what real champions weaponize. Instead, Claressa Shields has done the exact opposite. Claressa Shields has fed Alicia Baumgardner more airtime, more relevance, and more headline space than any promoter could have paid for with a marketing budget. Now let us talk about the slap, because you cannot understand this feud without unpacking that specific moment frame by frame. Most Valuable Promotions held its debut MMA card. Ronda Rousey was headlining the entire event. Sponsors were in the room. Broadcasters were in the room. Business partners were in the room. Media rows were packed to the walls. It was, in every sense of the phrase, a professional gathering built to elevate women's combat sports to a brand new tier of visibility. And into that room walked Claressa Shields and Alicia Baumgardner, and what should have been a controlled bit of promotional theater turned into something else entirely on live camera. Alicia Baumgardner was surrounded by security. Claressa Shields reached over that security wall and slapped Alicia Baumgardner across the face. On camera, in front of sponsors, in front of executives, in front of the entire sports media landscape. That was not a face-off gone wrong. That was a decision. Now, in the immediate aftermath, the Shields echo machine kicked in at full volume. Claressa Shields posted memes celebrating the moment. Claressa Shields laughed about it on live streams. Claressa Shields treated the slap like it was a badge, like it was a mic drop, like it was some kind of unofficial championship point on the scorecard. And this is the exact moment the tide started turning against Claressa Shields in a serious way, because the audience was watching. Not just her fan base. The audience. The industry. Executives at Most Valuable Promotions. Broadcasting partners. Boxing commissions. And they were all making notes in real time. Then came Alicia Baumgardner's response, and I want you to pay very close attention to how Alicia Baumgardner handled this specific moment, because the contrast is going to matter for the rest of this story arc. Alicia Baumgardner did not live stream. Alicia Baumgardner did not fire off tweets. Alicia Baumgardner did not scream into any camera lens. Alicia Baumgardner released a single, clean, disciplined statement. She would be handling the situation through the proper channels. That was it. 9 words of thunder. Because the moment Alicia Baumgardner said proper channels, the temperature in the room shifted immediately. Proper channels means paperwork. Proper channels means the Athletic Commission. Proper channels means potential legal exposure for Claressa Shields. Proper channels means Claressa Shields is no longer in charge of the story. And that terrifies a fighter like Claressa Shields, whose entire personal brand runs on total control of the narrative. Because look, Claressa Shields is a master of the microphone. Claressa Shields can hold a room. Claressa Shields can outtalk anybody in the sport when she is on offense. But Alicia Baumgardner just moved the fight to a place where microphones do not matter one bit. Alicia Baumgardner moved the fight to lawyers, athletic boards, and formal complaints. And in that arena, Claressa Shields has no advantage whatsoever. None. Then came the hammer. Most Valuable Promotions, the promotional company co-founded by Nakisa Bidarian and backed by Jake Paul, released their own statement to the public. Effective immediately, Claressa Shields was banned from all Most Valuable Promotions events until further notice. Read that again. Banned. From every event. From every card. From every activity. From every partnership under the Most Valuable Promotions banner. This is not a small company. This is the company that has quietly signed some of the biggest names in women's boxing. This is the company reshaping how women's boxing is packaged, sold, and broadcast to global audiences. And Claressa Shields, the fighter who has spent years insisting she is the face of the sport, just got locked out of the fastest-growing promotional infrastructure in the entire game. Now, in fairness, Claressa Shields pushed back. Claressa Shields went on multiple live streams and pointed out, correctly, that she was not banned from boxing altogether. She has not lost her boxing license. She has not been suspended by any commission. The ban is specifically confined to Most Valuable Promotions events. That is a real distinction. But here is what Claressa Shields keeps failing to grasp about the modern landscape. In modern women's boxing, being locked out of Most Valuable Promotions is functionally the same as being frozen out of the biggest doors in the room. That is where the money is going. That is where the media rights are going. That is where Netflix is going. So while Claressa Shields is technically correct that she has not been banned from boxing, she has been banned from the fastest lane in boxing. And there is a difference. Then Claressa Shields did something even more damaging to her own case. Claressa Shields went on livestream and said that Nakisa Bidarian himself had personally invited her to the Most Valuable Promotions event. Claressa Shields claimed they were still in close communication. Claressa Shields painted the picture that everything between herself and Most Valuable Promotions was cordial and professional. Now here is the problem. Nakisa Bidarian himself came out and disputed every single piece of that. Nakisa Bidarian said they had not been in real contact since the Shadasia Green fight. Nakisa Bidarian said the promotional company was still waiting on an apology that most observers believe will never come. And just like that, another Claressa Shields talking point evaporated in public view. Now think about what that actually means for the moment we are living in. Claressa Shields is not just fighting Alicia Baumgardner in the ring. Claressa Shields is now, effectively, in a public credibility war with the co-founder of the most influential women's boxing promotion in the entire world. And every time Claressa Shields tells one version of the story, Nakisa Bidarian gently corrects the record, calm, deliberate, no theatrics required whatsoever. Claressa Shields is losing this exchange every single day and does not seem to realize it. Which brings us to the interview clip that just detonated everything. And this is where Alicia Baumgardner did something almost surgical in nature. Alicia Baumgardner sat down and, when pressed on Claressa Shields, said something that has now been dissected in every boxing corner of the internet. Alicia Baumgardner said she would knock Claressa Shields out cold. That is the line the algorithm is chewing on. But the more important line is the other one, the one that has been overlooked. When Alicia Baumgardner was asked about Claressa Shields as a person, Alicia Baumgardner refused to elevate her at all. Alicia Baumgardner said, effectively, we are not talking about her, next question. That is a masterclass in narrative control. Alicia Baumgardner did not spiral. Alicia Baumgardner did not vent. Alicia Baumgardner did not gift Claressa Shields more headlines. Alicia Baumgardner starved Claressa Shields of the oxygen Claressa Shields runs on. And then Alicia Baumgardner said the words that have haunted this whole storyline. Consequences are consequences. Consequences are consequences. Simple, cold, complete. And when Alicia Baumgardner added the phrase, if you read the Bible you know what a consequence is, next question, that was not a religious flex for the crowd. That was a warning shot dressed up as scripture. Alicia Baumgardner was telling Claressa Shields and telling the entire boxing world that the meter is running, that the paperwork is moving, and that at some point this stops being a live stream fight and starts being a real-world reckoning with real-world consequences attached. And then Alicia Baumgardner did the one thing Claressa Shields absolutely did not want her to do. Alicia Baumgardner accepted the crown. When the interviewer asked Alicia Baumgardner if she saw herself as the face of women's boxing, Alicia Baumgardner did not flinch for a millisecond. Alicia Baumgardner said she was ready to carry it. Alicia Baumgardner said she was ready for the pressure, the expectations, the responsibility, all of it. Alicia Baumgardner accepted the throne on live television while Claressa Shields was still shouting about who owned it on a live stream. Read that sentence twice, because the symbolism is enormous for anyone paying attention. And within 1 hour, Claressa Shields lost her composure. Within 1 hour, Claressa Shields fired off a post that has now been screenshotted and clipped and dissected everywhere online. Claressa Shields called Alicia Baumgardner scary. Claressa Shields accused Alicia Baumgardner of wanting to press charges while simultaneously talking tough. Claressa Shields declared herself the real face of women's boxing, dropped a Ticketmaster link for her August 15th event, and hit send in a single burst. And that entire post is a case study in why Alicia Baumgardner is currently winning this war without stepping into the ring once. Because look at what Claressa Shields just admitted in that single post. Claressa Shields admitted that Alicia Baumgardner's interview got under her skin badly enough that Claressa Shields could not wait a single business day before responding. Claressa Shields admitted that she is aware Alicia Baumgardner is pursuing legal channels, which is a story shift, because earlier Claressa Shields herself hinted she might pursue legal action against Most Valuable Promotions and others. So now the question everybody is asking is simple. Which is it, Claressa Shields? Are you the one pressing charges? Or are you the one having charges pressed on you? Because the story keeps changing depending on which live stream we tune into on any given night. Now let us zoom out, because this is not just about a slap anymore. This is about a champion who has quietly lost control of her own public image. Claressa Shields has publicly celebrated moments of aggression against Alicia Baumgardner. Claressa Shields shared the memes. Claressa Shields laughed on the streams. Claressa Shields treated the slap as content for the algorithm. But the moment Alicia Baumgardner said consequences, the moment lawyers entered the conversation, Claressa Shields pivoted immediately. Claressa Shields started framing Alicia Baumgardner as scared. Claressa Shields started framing Alicia Baumgardner as weak for using legal channels. That pivot is the tell. That is the exact moment you know a fighter has lost the plot completely. Claressa Shields is not standing behind her own decisions. Claressa Shields is deflecting. And now let us talk about the August 15th event, because that card is another chapter in this saga that deserves attention. Claressa Shields is scheduled to headline her own event on August 15th. Claressa Shields has been promoting the card as, quote, the real face of women's boxing back outside. And the boxing purists are already picking that apart line by line, and the criticisms are stacking. Because the opponent Claressa Shields is stepping in with reportedly has only 7 professional fights on her record. 7. For a fighter who spends every live stream reminding us she is the greatest women's boxer of all time, that opponent selection has raised eyebrows across the entire sport. The undercard has drawn even more questions, with celebrity appearances, entertainment crossover acts, and personalities from outside the boxing world stacking the bill from top to bottom. And that is fine. Spectacle is part of the business. But it clashes hard with the message Claressa Shields keeps pushing about being an elite pound-for-pound talent surrounded by elite competition. Because for years, Claressa Shields has publicly praised the top of women's boxing. Claressa Shields has said the elite talent is real, that the depth is deeper than people admit, that women's boxing deserves the same respect as men's boxing at the pinnacle level. Fine. Agreed. But then Claressa Shields books a fighter with 7 professional fights and lines the card with celebrity crossovers and asks fans to treat this as a marquee women's boxing event. That is the contradiction the boxing community is currently chewing on around the clock, and Alicia Baumgardner does not need to say a single word to make that contradiction hurt. The card speaks for itself. Then there is the online layer, which has become its own subplot inside the bigger story. Claressa Shields has jumped on streams with Des Bryant. Claressa Shields has resurfaced older clips critics interpreted as shots at Alicia Baumgardner's personal life. Claressa Shields has kept the fire burning in ways any communication strategist would beg her to stop immediately. Because every additional Claressa Shields post is another data point Alicia Baumgardner's team can screenshot and archive quietly. Every live stream is another sentence of evidence. Every meme is another exhibit. And Claressa Shields keeps producing more of them, seemingly unaware that the paperwork is watching every single beat. Which brings us to the deeper question, why? Why has Claressa Shields fixated so heavily on Alicia Baumgardner in the first place? And the answer, if you rewind the tape carefully, connects back to earlier interviews where Alicia Baumgardner was asked about Claressa Shields not signing with Most Valuable Promotions, and about Alicia Baumgardner's own management team behind her. Alicia Baumgardner's response was, essentially, the name explains everything you need to know. That single line, that short, calm, dismissive line, landed like a hook Alicia Baumgardner threw 2 years ago that Claressa Shields is still trying to slip. Because for a fighter who prides herself on being the loudest voice in the room, being dismissed with a shrug is unbearable. And ever since that moment, the temperature between these two has climbed every single quarter without exception. There is a clip out there from a couple of years back where Alicia Baumgardner actually praised Claressa Shields as an amazing boxer. Alicia Baumgardner gave Claressa Shields her flowers. Alicia Baumgardner respected the work Claressa Shields had done in the sport. And that clip is now painful to watch, because it shows how far this relationship has fallen in a short window of time. What used to be public respect between two of the sport's most talented fighters has curdled into one of the ugliest rivalries in women's boxing history. And most observers agree Claressa Shields is the one driving the deterioration, not Alicia Baumgardner. Now here is the part one want the real ones in this comment section to weigh in on. Drop your honest take, because this is where the accountability conversation gets sharp. Claressa Shields has built a career on being outspoken, on being unfiltered, on being the one who says what the rest of the sport is too polite to say. Fine. Respect the honesty. But honesty cuts both ways. And the moment Claressa Shields started making other fighters' private lives part of her promotional strategy, the honesty became a weapon aimed sideways. That is where the audience started splitting, because there is a difference between being outspoken and being invasive. There is a difference between being a champion who talks trash and being a champion who drags private personal lives into public arenas. And the sponsors are watching every second of it. Sponsors, broadcasters, streaming partners, and equipment brands are watching every one of these live stream meltdowns in real time. Because sponsors invest in athletes who expand audience trust, not shrink it. Every additional Claressa Shields livestream where Alicia Baumgardner's personal life becomes a talking point is another sponsorship dollar quietly moving toward another fighter. Sponsors do not need controversy. Sponsors need predictability. And Claressa Shields, right now, is the least predictable brand ambassador in the sport by a wide margin. Look, I want to be fair here because Claressa Shields' accomplishments are real and permanent. Claressa Shields is a two-time Olympic gold medalist. Claressa Shields has held multiple undisputed championships. Claressa Shields opened doors that were nailed shut before she showed up on the scene. None of that is up for debate. But legacies are not just built by the wins in the ring. Legacies are built by the way champions carry themselves outside it. And the way Claressa Shields is carrying herself right now is doing damage to the very legacy she is trying to protect on every timeline. Because here is the uncomfortable truth Claressa Shields' loudest supporters do not want to hear tonight. Alicia Baumgardner does not have to beat Claressa Shields in the ring to win this rivalry. Alicia Baumgardner is winning it in real time by simply refusing to spiral. Alicia Baumgardner is winning it by using 9 words instead of 9,000. Alicia Baumgardner is winning it by letting the paperwork move quietly while Claressa Shields shouts on every timeline. Alicia Baumgardner is winning it by accepting the crown Claressa Shields keeps insisting is not up for grabs. And Alicia Baumgardner is winning it without breaking her composure once in the entire cycle. Now, will these two ever actually meet in the ring? That is the trillion-dollar question hanging over women's boxing right now on every level. Because on paper, it is the biggest possible fight the sport can make. It writes itself. It fills any arena you want. It sets streaming records. It elevates every fighter on the undercard. It puts women's boxing on a mainstream stage the sport has begged for over a decade. But every day Claressa Shields spends fighting Alicia Baumgardner on live streams is a day that fight moves further away, not closer. Because promoters do not want to build a mega fight around a fighter locked in a legal exchange. Broadcasters do not want to invest in a card that could be complicated by pending complaints. And commissions do not want to sanction a bout with paperwork hanging over one of the two fighters. So every additional Claressa Shields outburst is another brick in the wall between Claressa Shields and the biggest payday of her entire career. Read that again slowly. The person keeping Claressa Shields from the biggest fight of Claressa Shields' life is Claressa Shields herself. Not Alicia Baumgardner. Not Most Valuable Promotions. Not Nakisa Bidarian. Not the athletic commissions. Not the sponsors. Claressa Shields and Claressa Shields alone. And this is where the whole story lands. Because when the dust settles, and it absolutely will settle, women's boxing is going to have a face. That is inevitable. The sport has waited too long for a mainstream superstar to let this moment pass without crowning one. And right now, in real time, one fighter is auditioning for that throne with restraint, discipline, and precision, and the other fighter is auditioning for it with slaps, live streams, memes, and Ticketmaster links. One of those auditions is going to win the room. And the room is not stupid. Alicia Baumgardner does not need to raise her voice. Alicia Baumgardner does not need to swing wildly. Alicia Baumgardner does not need to make Claressa Shields' name trend on Alicia Baumgardner's timeline. Alicia Baumgardner just needs to keep doing what Alicia Baumgardner has already been doing. Showing up polished, speaking cleanly, letting the paperwork carry the weight, and reminding the sport that consequences are, in fact, consequences. Meanwhile, Claressa Shields keeps handing Alicia Baumgardner ammunition. Claressa Shields keeps handing Most Valuable Promotions justification. Claressa Shields keeps handing sponsors reasons to hesitate. Claressa Shields keeps handing critics receipts. And Claressa Shields keeps insisting the world does not see what the world is very clearly seeing on every live stream. Because here is the final piece of this, and I want you to sit with it for a second. Claressa Shields is not being taken down by Alicia Baumgardner. Claressa Shields is being taken down by the version of Claressa Shields that Claressa Shields has been broadcasting to the world for months. Every live stream, every meme, every slap, every deflection, every contradiction, every shifting story about Nakisa Bidarian, every softened claim about the ban, every hardened claim about Alicia Baumgardner, every recycled clip aimed at Alicia Baumgardner's private life. That is the case being built. And Claressa Shields is the one presenting most of the evidence herself. Now, Claressa Shields still has time. That is the honest read. Champions get to rewrite their stories all the time in this sport. The comeback narrative in combat sports is one of the most powerful narratives in all of professional athletics. Claressa Shields could step off the internet tomorrow morning. Claressa Shields could deliver a clean, respectful public statement acknowledging the mistake at the most valuable promotions event. Claressa Shields could focus on her August 15th card, deliver a spectacular performance, and pivot the entire storyline back in her direction inside a single week. Fighters have done more with less. The runway is still there. But every additional day Claressa Shields spends fighting the mirror instead of fighting the fight, that runway gets shorter and shorter. And on the other side, Alicia Baumgardner is doing what elite fighters do when the storm is around them. Alicia Baumgardner is training, preparing, resting, and letting professionals handle the pieces professionals handle. Alicia Baumgardner has said publicly she is ready for the throne. Alicia Baumgardner has said publicly she believes she would knock Claressa Shields out. Alicia Baumgardner has said publicly the consequences are coming. And Alicia Baumgardner has not walked back a single one of those statements. That is confidence with a receipt attached. That is a champion who understands that the loudest voice in the room is almost never the strongest one at the table. So where does this leave women's boxing right now? In an incredible position, honestly. Because whatever happens in the courts, whatever happens on August 15th, whatever happens in the next round of Claressa Shields live streams, whatever happens with most valuable promotions, women's boxing has never had this much attention pointed at it, this much mainstream heat, this much crossover potential. Alicia Baumgardner has cemented herself as one of the most composed champions in the sport. Claressa Shields has proven, whether she meant to or not, that she is one of the most compelling public figures the sport has ever produced. And the audience is watching every second of this play out. The only person who does not seem to understand what is really happening is Claressa Shields herself. Because Claressa Shields believes she is winning this. Claressa Shields believes the live streams are working. Claressa Shields believes the memes are landing. Claressa Shields believes the Ticketmaster link is closing the argument. And every one of those beliefs is quietly incorrect. Because the market is telling us otherwise. The sponsors are telling us otherwise. Most valuable promotions is telling us otherwise. The commissions are watching. The critics are stacking. And Alicia Baumgardner is standing in the eye of the storm, letting Claressa Shields talk herself into corners Alicia Baumgardner does not have to punch her into. The mask just slipped. That is the honest read of this entire situation. And once a mask slips, it is almost impossible to put it back on in the same way it was worn before. Claressa Shields has always been a firebrand, and that was always part of her appeal to the audience. But there is a difference between firebrand and freefall. And what we are watching right now, in real time, whether Claressa Shields' inner circle wants to admit it or not, is a slow, public, self-inflicted freefall from the highest branch women's boxing has ever offered a single fighter. Alicia Baumgardner is going to walk out of this with the crown. That is my read, and I am willing to stand on it publicly. Alicia Baumgardner is going to keep her composure, keep her preparation, keep her paperwork moving, and keep her mouth exactly as measured as it has been for the last several months. And when the smoke clears, the sport is going to look up and realize the transition already happened while everybody was busy watching the live streams. Because that is how these things always work. Nobody notices the throne changing hands until the new champion is already sitting on it. So the question for you, and I want your genuine take in the comments below. Do you agree that Claressa Shields is losing this rivalry to herself? Or do you think Claressa Shields still has a run left in her image comeback? Because there are strong cases both ways, and the comment section is where this conversation actually breathes. Drop your take. Be honest. Do not sugarcoat it. The real ones will tell you the same thing I just told you, and the loudest ones will tell you the opposite. Both takes are welcome. That is what makes this channel what it is at the end of the day. And listen, if you made it all the way to this point in the video, you are one of the real ones. You are the ones who actually care about how these stories unfold beyond the surface layer of the headlines. So do me a favor. Smash that like button, hit subscribe if you have not yet, share this video with the boxing fans in your circle, and hit the next video on your screen right now because we have got more coverage coming and this Claressa Shields versus Alicia Baumgardner storyline is nowhere near finished. Not even close. There is more to come, more to unpack, more receipts on the way, and you are going to want to be locked in when the next chapter drops on this channel. So click the next video, stay in the room, and I will catch you there. Alicia Baumgardner said consequences are consequences. Claressa Shields still has not figured out what that actually means yet. And by the time she does, the crown might already be on someone else's head entirely. Peace, family. Stay safe out there. And do not forget to comment your take below. The real ones already know. Before we wrap, one more thread deserves the spotlight tonight. Nobody in modern boxing has generated more heat, more headlines, and more crossover attention on women's boxing than Claressa Shields. Claressa Shields turned a niche sport into a mainstream conversation. Claressa Shields is the reason a company like Most Valuable Promotions even had a business case for building a women's division in the first place. The very promotional company that just banned Claressa Shields would not exist in the shape it is in without her contribution. That is the tragic layer under this entire saga. Claressa Shields helped build the very door that just closed on her. And whether you love Claressa Shields or cannot stand her, the story matters. It is a case study in what happens when a fighter forgets that the same energy that built the empire can burn it down if pointed the wrong way. Claressa Shields pointed the energy at Alicia Baumgardner. Alicia Baumgardner absorbed it, sidestepped it, and let Claressa Shields' own momentum drag her into her own corner. The fighter who loses composure first loses the war first. Claressa Shields lost composure the second Alicia Baumgardner said the word consequences out loud. And finally, a word for Alicia Baumgardner in all of this because Alicia Baumgardner deserves it fully. Alicia Baumgardner had to build this composure. Alicia Baumgardner had to earn it. Alicia Baumgardner had to survive years of being told she was the second name in every conversation about women's boxing. And at the moment when Alicia Baumgardner could easily lose her cool, Alicia Baumgardner is doing the exact opposite. Alicia Baumgardner is quiet. Alicia Baumgardner is measured. Alicia Baumgardner is precise. Alicia Baumgardner is letting the calendar do the fighting for her. And the calendar is undefeated. That is why this rivalry is going to be studied for years to come. Because what we are watching is the exact moment two of the most talented fighters in the world took two completely different roads out of the same intersection. Alicia Baumgardner took the road that leads to legacy and long-term greatness. Claressa Shields took the road that leads to livestream after livestream. And that road does not have a finish line. It just has more streams stacked on top of more streams. So when you see the loudest Claressa Shields supporters insisting nothing is wrong, ask one question. If everything is fine, why is Claressa Shields on live twice a day defending herself? Champions who are truly winning do not have to defend themselves that often. Right now, Claressa Shields is doing all the talking, and none of the fighting. Alicia Baumgardner is doing all the fighting, and almost none of the talking. That contrast is the entire story of this rivalry in one sentence. One last thing before the outro tonight. August 15th is going to be a defining moment. If Claressa Shields shows up, performs at an elite level, and lets the boxing do the talking, the narrative can absolutely swing back in her direction. The talent has never been the question. The composure has always been the question. August 15th is a chance to reset the entire arc, from the walkout to the final bell, and we will be here to break down every round in full detail. Because the truth is simple. Claressa Shields versus Alicia Baumgardner is the biggest untapped mega fight in women's boxing history. And every live stream, every meme, every slap, every ban, And every Ticketmaster link is either bringing that fight closer or pushing it further away. Right now, everything Claressa Shields is doing is pushing it further away. Alicia Baumgardner is doing the smartest thing a champion can do. Alicia Baumgardner is letting the market build the pressure. And when the pressure gets high enough, the fight will make itself. The only question is whether Claressa Shields will still be in a position to accept it when it finally comes. And based on the trend line we have watched unfold since the slap, since the ban, since the interview, and since the 1-hour meltdown post, that position is shrinking daily. So drop your take. Are you team Claressa Shields, still riding for the champion who built the sport? Are you team Alicia Baumgardner, riding for the champion writing the next chapter? Are you somewhere in the middle, still hoping both women find a way back to the ring together? Whatever your take, put it in the comments. The conversation is where this thing lives, and this channel is where it happens every single time. Because a rivalry this loud, this messy, and this consequential does not resolve itself in one news cycle. It resolves itself in the comment sections on the live streams, in the courtrooms, and eventually, hopefully, in the ring. And whichever way it lands, we will be right here breaking down every single layer as it drops. The story is not over. It is barely starting. Alicia Baumgardner is still training. Claressa Shields is still streaming. Most Valuable Promotions is still moving. And every one of those clocks is ticking on a different rhythm. Remember this closing thought as you head to the comments below. Alicia Baumgardner did not become the story of women's boxing by chasing Claressa Shields. Alicia Baumgardner became the story by letting Claressa Shields chase her instead. That inversion is the entire lesson of this rivalry. Every livestream Claressa Shields ran only elevated Alicia Baumgardner further. Every meme only made Alicia Baumgardner more sympathetic. Every headline only widened the platform Alicia Baumgardner is about to inherit. That is the final scoreboard. When the smoke clears, Alicia Baumgardner is going to be standing exactly where Claressa Shields told the world Claressa Shields would always stand. See you in the next one. The real ones already know.